Folks, as we gather, welcome everybody back. We'll go back into session, into committees with the Wildlife Management Committee. A couple of quick updates. One, we're going to keep moving through, so if you need to tend to anything personal, if you got low blood sugar and you want to grab something to bite, just step out, feel free to do that. If we have, we might have a very short break, but we won't be breaking for lunch unless there's a big objection for members of commission. But I've had a few requests for us to just keep working through our pretty heavy agenda, so we won't be taking a lunch break. That's one. And with that, I will then turn to Chairman Cook for the Wildlife Management Committee.
Chairman Woodson, we'd like to recognize Lieutenant Colonel Cape Taylor to discuss manner and means.
Thank you, Chairman Cook. She said I'm Cape Taylor. I'll be doing the manner and means for this year. And this year we have Proclamation 1704, manner and means of hunting, taking, and trapping. And we only have one minor change that was brought up from one of our districts in the state where there was some misunderstanding by the judiciary as to the fact that whether individuals had to check out big game if they weren't taking it out of state or if they weren't gifting it to another. And the proclamation said that all big game must be checked out, and they understood it that only had to be checked out if it was being taken out of state or gifted. So we just changed the wording a little bit to make these individual sentences that stand on their own. Big game animals shall be checked in by the harvesting hunter by the end of the calendar day on which it was harvested, period. Additionally, big game animals shall be checked in by the harvesting hunter prior to being gifted to another or before transporting the animal out of state. Big game may be checked in the approved TWRA check-in station on the TWRA website or the TWRA mobile application. That basically says the same thing. We let that first sentence stand on its own so that it would be clear to the district attorneys and judges that we're having issues with understanding the way we had it written. And I think this will clear that up.
Thank you, Cape. Any questions from the committee?
I've got one, as usual. We've been getting, or I have been getting a lot of requests for night hunting predators.
Yes, sir.
And I understand, I'm sorry I didn't talk to you about this before, but I understand there's a safety issue, but I'd like for you to kind of think about under what conditions or what limitations, like maybe shotguns only and that kind of thing, that you would be okay with that.
Yes, sir. Commissioner, as Mark said in the beginning, we vet this through our different districts throughout the state, the wildlife managers, and we just came back with, we put that out there with no recommendation, but we will look into potential seasons if that's what y'all would like for us to consider and come back with something that would be amiable. We do have issues with concerns for livestock, for our officers hunting at night. There's been instances where officers with the U.S. Forest Service was shot while working coyote hunting. And recently we had a horse shot in Robertson County by somebody that came into the state and didn't know you couldn't coyote hunt or didn't care if you could coyote hunt, and shot and killed a quarter horse there, and that's still being adjudicated. So we have concerns with urban areas in the state because it varies greatly from some of the western states that do night hunt coyotes with centerfire. And we worry about places like here around Nashville, Brentwood, Franklin that have coyote population, that if we open that up to night hunting, that you may have people that are using that as a defense, which you can, over a city ordinance to hunt coyotes at night or whatever. So we will look at something and try to come up with something that would be, that y'all would like.
That might work.
Yes, sir. We're considering as well. We've looked at those options.
Any other comments from the committee or commission? Any comments from the public? Mr. Petrie, yeah. If you please introduce yourself, and I don't know if you were here, but we give you a 5-minute limit, please.
My name is James Petrie. Talked to most of you through email in the past. Basically, I want to thank you for giving me the time to speak up here. My proposal that I've got forth, thank you. My proposal I've got forth, I've sent through email, is basically to get our state on par with several other states that touch our state, which would be to, in essence, change muzzleloader season by title to either a primitive or limited range weapon season, and also allow the use of single-shot rifles, shotguns, and handguns during this time. My backing of this is that initially when this season was put in place, from research I've done, it was to pretty much give muzzleloader hunters a time to be able to use a firearm that had very limited range away from general gun season. Now, over time, that has obviously changed. We started out using percussion and flintlock rifles, and now we have muzzleloaders that use smokeless powder. We have muzzleloaders that use cut-down .308 rifle cartridges with a primer for ignition, and there, you can go on the internet and find article after article that show these rifles are capable of 300-yard accuracy. My reasoning to change this is to, for one, we have, it seems like, especially people my age and younger, you've got people who have kind of lost interest in hunting, or people who kind of want to get into it, but you know, these are people who grew up playing video games, or, you know, black rifle people and stuff like that. But if you'd give them additional opportunity to use a different type of weapon other than a muzzleloader, being the fact a single shot shotgun is technically now at a disadvantage to a muzzleloader due to range restrictions. Handguns obviously are at a range restriction. Now, these weapons are of course legal currently during the gun season, but most people who are going to hunt during that particular time are going to use a centerfire rifle due to the extra range capability. This would also give people who may have limited use with their hands, that muzzleloaders are hard to load, that could otherwise shoot a single shot, you know, rifle, shotgun, handgun, the ability to hunt who otherwise skip this season. And it also gives an additional challenge, you know, to use a weapon that would require you to use your hunting skills to get game in closer than what you normally otherwise would during this season. Right now, there's 7 states that in some way, shape, or form have this, including Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Alabama, South Carolina. They all have similarities, which are they require the use of a .35 caliber and larger as far as the cartridge is concerned, pistol or rifle. Missouri's is a little bit different to where they require a .35 caliber larger, but they allow the use of any handgun whatsoever during muzzleloader season, which would include semi-automatic, revolver, whatever. They call theirs a primitive weapon season also. Otherwise, all the states are pretty much the same. They also allow the use of these newer high-powered air rifles that have came on the market within the past 5 years that are .35 caliber and larger, and they've demonstrated being able to take game cleanly, deer-sized game, out to 100 yards. And some even go as far as using these more primitive weapons like an addle, which is a huge spear that is thrown. I went through and did the research on this, called the wildlife commissions on this proposal, and every state that I talked to, when I talked to their office, they all have stated that there's been positive impact. It has not adjusted their game as far as killing too many deer. It's allowed license sales to increase. It's kept the interest in hunting. It's brought new hunters in. It's also, into effect, put money more back into the wildlife system due to the tax stamps that are on ammunition and guns. It's gave additional opportunities. Some people who are wounded or have, you know, missing limbs or whatever have been able to now hunt during this time frame. And it's not caused people to quit using muzzleloaders altogether. There's articles in several newspapers, magazines that have said, you know, a lot of people that are using muzzleloaders are comfortable with them. They're not going to change even though they have this ability. But when you fire a shot, you're firing a shot. It doesn't sound any different to deer, whether you're shooting a rifle, muzzleloader, whatever. And I think this would be a very positive change. I mean, we've already, through email, demonstrated the ballistics are similar, projectiles are similar. In addition to that, I've went in and did due diligence and emailed all the hunting organizations across the state of Tennessee, large ones like Ames Plantation and such. I received no negative feedback whatsoever, even got emails supporting this back to me, and the Tennessee Firearms Association has fully backed this proposal. Their board voted on it and have fully backed it with their support. So with that, I would turn it back over to questions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation. Cape, I'd like to ask, similar to what Commissioner Cox asked for the predator hunting at night, a similar statement on what's the agency's position on this.
Well, as I said, we vetted this through the entire state, from the wildlife managers and the majors throughout the state and through their districts. We had no recommendation to move away from the definition that we currently use for muzzle loading shotguns or muzzle loading rifles, depending on what you were doing, where it's required to be loaded through the barrel, and it's got to be loaded down the breech. So that's where we've been. This is one of our most popular seasons of the year, is our muzzleloader season, and it's very successful to us. Our license sales have remained constant between 21,000, 25,000, 24,000, and the harvest has remained between 36 and 45,000 for the last, since 2009, that goes back. So we received 6 comments relative to this in this comment period. One's Mr. Petrie's that he has been recommending for several years. So we don't have any recommendation to move away from the current season, what we feel is one of our most popular hunting seasons. And for the risk of moving people that are happy with what we have with a muzzle loading season to start shooting centerfire rifles and shotguns during this season and push them out of that is our fear.
I'm just curious, is there information you think it would push people away from muzzleloader hunting if that's what they enjoy?
We only considered that this is our most popular type season because of the rut being involved at that period of time. It would be speculation on our part to know whether it would affect the license sales. As he said, maybe drive them up. We don't know. That's an unknown.
Commissioner Cox, you have a comment?
Well, you kind of asked the question. You don't know for sure, but whether it's a popular season because you can use a muzzleloader or because it opens rifle season up 2 weeks early.
It opens rifle season up 2 weeks early, and I think that is part of it.
Right.
But then you get into we're actually opening rifle season up 2 weeks early.
I understand, and the ones that like muzzleloaders that are hunting on their property a half a mile from me, and I'm using a primitive weapon that is a cartridge. I don't know how, and I'm just kind of started thinking about this, but what am I using affecting that man and his experience? Like longbows and crossbows, that was the argument against crossbows, but when you're shooting a longbow on your property and I'm using a crossbow, I can't see how what I'm using affects what you're using, so.
I agree with your comments, Commissioner Chief. Commissioner Holbert.
Kate,
Yes, sir.
first off, I've really weighed this both ways. My concern is, right now, if you want to hunt with a muzzleloader during rifle season, you can do so with a muzzleloader tag, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If we do this, a big concern of mine is why would I want to buy a big game stamp if I can hunt with my single shot rifle, or if I'm hunting in the woods, if I can hunt with my slug gun that holds 3 bullets? What would my encouragement be to buy a big game stamp? I think we're going to look at a huge decrease, or possibly.
That was the flip side, not only the muzzleloader license where they go up or down, but does that satisfy gun hunters to be able to hunt during the muzzleloader season and not buy the type of 09 that would be required for the gun season? So there again, it's an unknown, but it is a variable.
Right.
So
And I can see maybe if you, but I think, we have to really be careful because we're just opening the door for, I've seen it in Indiana, I've seen it in other states. They thought they were doing the right thing, and before they knew it, they had such a loophole in it. So I think we really need to be careful. We're going to shoot ourselves in the foot if we're not careful.
Yes, Mr. Petrie, if you can make it quick, please. If you please step to the microphone.
Just to kind of go with that, Indiana is a complete different scenario. Indiana had a shotgun-only season for a long time, and what they did was they opened it up to allow the use of handgun cartridges out of a rifle in their general gun season. This would not do away with gun season in general, and you can't use a pump slug gun during this. This would limit it to a certain framework of weapons that would be allowed in addition to muzzleloaders, which would be a single-shot shotgun, a single-shot rifle 35 caliber or larger, or a handgun 35 caliber or larger. If it didn't fit that criteria, you can't use a 30-06 during this time. You can't use, any other type of weapon. It would be a muzzleloader that is defined as it currently is, in addition to adding these weapons. It would just change the title of the muzzleloader permit to either, you call it primitive weapons or short-range weapons, but you would still have to buy that permit. And if you wanted to hunt during gun season, you would still have to buy a permit to hunt during gun season. And as I stated before, every place that I spoke with as far as their wildlife resources were concerned, they said it did not affect gun season negatively, nor did it affect people using muzzleloaders negatively, because gun season was kind of a whole separate thing. All this would be doing is, during this 2-week time of muzzleloader season, allow a limited scope use of additional weapons to be used. That's all it would do.
I understand, but the way our system's set up, if you wanna buy an archery tag and hunt all year long during rifle season, you can do so. So the way we're set up now, if you bought a primitive weapon permit, then you would be allowed to hunt during rifle season with that, and not have to buy a rifle permit.
Yeah, well, that to me
And that to me is a huge revenue loss.
Well, that kind of seems more of a license issue than it does, because I didn't even realize that. I've always have understood that if you hunt rifle, regardless if you bought a muzzleloader permit or not, if you go during guns, you have to have your gun license. So, that's.
You can bow hunt all year with just an archery license.
You can, if you want to archery hunt, it's, as it proceeds through the seasons, it's gun, muzzleloader, archery once the rifle season starts. And similarly, you can hunt with a muzzleloader during that period of time as well.
And two, with that, my thing is that, I showed Commissioner Cox an ad during break where, Remington has a muzzleloader out that's 300-yard accuracy, and it uses a centerfire cartridge to ignite itself with. And we've gotten to this point, we're pulling straws here at this point of what a definition of a muzzleloader is. I mean, you're simply saying because, it has to load from the muzzle. Well, at this point, goes back to the whole crossbow argument. I mean, that was kind of the same fear with that, where really there's no point of even having this segmented season at this point. This would give additional opportunity to use a short-range weapon that would be kind of otherwise at a disadvantage during general gun. And that's
Mr. Petrie, Mr. Beggars, a quick question for you. Sure.
So if I get me a 338 Lapua built, it's a single shot, and put a 5x25,
It wouldn't qualify.
why not?
It's a 33 caliber, not a 35.
Okay, but I can get a 50 cal BMG single shot and do the same thing, right?
Well, technically, but you would also, with a lot of these.
What about a 408 Chi-Tech? Okay, we'll make it
I mean,
real
if you
simple. I can
wanna-
get one of those built, and it would qualify under your rules.
Well,
I'm out.
you actually could, but the only other thing would be is that, like Louisiana and Mississippi has it as, they limit it to the use of a certain list of single-shot rifles and single-shot handguns that could be used. So in other words, your rifle, the way you describe it, would not be allowed. It would have to be something like a Thompson Contender, it'd have to be a Newman Firearms Handy rifle, a Sharps rifle, a Ruger #1, something of that type nature.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other comments from the commission? Any other comments from the public? Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Commissioner Cook.
All right, we'll now moving along to, I'd like to recognize Chuck Yost to discuss CWD.
Certainly, thank you. Can I invite you back up, Scott? I'm not seeing the notes. Commissioners, during this little gap, let me do a little house cleaning from the previous deer presentation. Real quick, a couple of really significant questions were asked, and I've got some answers for you now. The two graphs that there was confusion about fawns and bucks with antlers less than 3 inches, those are apples to oranges comparisons. Is reason why it didn't just make sense in the beginning. And that the data from both those graphs was collected by our staff. Thus, it's not impacted by the changes in reporting. So don't concern yourself with that matter. And then the 12% figure on the last graph, it's higher than the 4% on the previous one because it includes yearlings as well, yearlings with less than 3 inches of antlers. So that 12% figure from that final graph includes both fawns and yearlings, and is why it's 12% as opposed to the original 4% in the earlier graph.
Run that first one by me again. I kinda like says, don't pay attention to what I'm doing over here, just ignore this. What did you say?
We can explore this more next month, but it really is, it's an unequal comparison, the two graphics. But some things to note is that in the first one where it showed fawns were only about 4% of the entire composition of bucks, that is true, they were about 4%. Now, we did see an increase in the number of deer with antlers, or we did see an increase in the number of bucks with less than 3 inches of antlers, but that is because that number of 12 is higher than 4, because 4% is fawns, and then the remaining percent is yearlings that had less than 3 inches of antlers. Because as you know, both fawns and yearlings could have either no antlers or less than 3 inches. All right, so let me test this thing to make sure that it's working, because it seems to not be. No, that's not it. It's you have to go to the home screen now. Sorry. I know the director's got a joke, I'm just waiting on it.